outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, the CEO of the Crone Law Firm. And no, you're not seeing double. There are two of us. I'd like to introduce Alan Crone.
Hello.
Hello, Alan. I have had mayors, congressmen, CEOs on this show, and none of them raised to the level of having Alan Crone on the broadcast. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Alan Crone. It is an honor to be with you here today. I know that over the years, through digital domains and social media searches, that we've known about each other, back and forth. It's been kind of interesting. I think we communicated once or twice years ago, but it's an honor to be with you here today.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is mine. Alan is a meteorologist in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he's right. We both have sturdy internet presence because of our various professions. He because he legitimately belongs in media, and I because I'm a shameless self-promoter. I have been on the internet for a very long time. Now that we've gotten the hook out of the way, okay, yeah, we have the same name. Let's talk a little bit. I always say every superhero has an origin story, and tell me a little bit about how you go from being growing up in, is it Meridian, Oklahoma? Did I say that right?
McAlester, just a little south of Tulsa, McAlester. Yeah.
Like I said, McAlester, Oklahoma. How did you get interested in this line of work?
Well, I've always been interested in two-folds, basically, in terms of broadcasting and in terms of weather and science. So when I was a child, I had a big fascination with the weather, as a lot of folks do. When the storms would roll in, when you're supposed to go inside and do what we tell everybody to do, go inside away from walls and windows, I would go outside. And I would get on the front porch and watch the storms kind of rolling in. So I've always had that fascination with weather. Also had a fascination with broadcasting. And it was one of the things that as a child, I kind of had this yearning to try to be a part of. And so long story short, when I was 16, I was talking to my parents, and it was like, how in the world can I try to further this fascination with broadcasting? And my mother said, well, why don't you put your application in at the local radio station? And McAlester, there's a couple of radio stations. McAlester was like, maybe you'll have an opportunity, you can go and maybe be around those people and watch them and learn from them. And, maybe you can get a job helping to clean up around the facility, maybe just show up once or twice a week and help clean up or whatever. So I actually, when I was 15 and a half, my mother drove me to one of the radio stations there in town, KNEB, KMCO, FM, and AM. I put my application in, and I thought I was making an application just to maybe help clean up around the facility. And lo and behold, I got a call back, and they said, hey, would you like to maybe learn how to be on the radio and to be a DJ? It's like, are you kidding me? That's nuts. That's crazy. So I didn't even have a driver's license at this point. So my mother would have to take me out there. But long story short, I got a job when I was just turned basically 16 at a radio station in McAlester. So I was able to get into that field. So I was in broadcasting radio from 1982. I went to college at a small college in southern Oklahoma, Southeastern Oklahoma State University in Grant. I was still in broadcasting at that point in radio. And I've always had this weather bug. I've always had this interest of trying to do that, but I thought that there was no way I would have the opportunity to ever pursue something like that again. Again, a very long story, and I'll make it short, is that I was working in television from about 1992, 1993, 1994, and there was an opportunity for me to step in and be a part of a weather team. I never thought I would have that opportunity to do that, and I was given that opportunity. And at that point, decided to go back to school. So Mississippi State University at that point had a distance learning program for people just like me that had already had a college education, but got into the weather enterprise and needed to go back to school. So Alan, it was kind of like online learning before online learning was such a big thing. So that was the broadcast and operational meteorology program from the Mississippi State University. So I did that. It's a 3-year certification program. I qualified for to being able to do basically what I'm doing. And I've been doing that since basically 1996. I've been in the weather enterprise business since 1996. I spent those years from 1996 until 2006 in Tulsa, in Texas, in the North Texas area. Sherman and Denison have a television station there. And then at 2006, had an opportunity to make a move to Tulsa. And so here we are. We've been here since 2006, and we still, move along in the weather enterprise business, and I love every minute of it.
Well, in Oklahoma, you have professional weather. It's a serious business in Oklahoma, I would imagine.
It can be, and a lot of the times it's weather is bluebird and it's just fine. There's not a lot going on, but as you and everybody else well knows, especially this time of the year, we can get these very significant storm systems, and we're right smack dab in the middle, as you are there in Memphis, into your severe weather season. Obviously, severe weather can happen at any time of the year, any time of the day or night. I mean, we've all seen that throughout the years, but we typically get into early March and right on through, about Memorial Day. It can get pretty rough, and it's been pretty rough so far this season here in Oklahoma with severe weather.
Yeah, as you probably know, Tennessee the last couple of weeks has had a lot of severe weather. Thankfully for us, a lot of it has missed Memphis proper. Now, I'll run this by you because you have no bias in this regard, but local lore has it that Memphis is protected from such weather events by the bluffs.
Right.
We are on a bluff, and the local lore is that it goes north and south of us. Is there any truth to that meteorologically?
No, there's not. I'll just tell you right off the bat. No, there's not. We have the same kind of.
They're big bluffs, Alan. I mean, they must be 20 feet tall.
There's also that type of lore, and I've obviously talked with a lot of people across the state here in Oklahoma, but also a lot of people across the United States, and you will find that almost in every single community. There will be something that someone thinks, well, that must have a role because the big storms just don't happen here, or they haven't happened here. But in all reality, we have a short memory, because they have happened in the past. They have happened before in Memphis that have been pretty significant, and they're going to happen again. So here locally in the Tulsa Metro, we have the Arkansas River that goes right through the city. And a lot of folks think that the river protects us from big storms, and that's just not the case. There's no scientific validity to that, but we've also had several storms, several tornadoes. We had a tornado a couple of years ago in Midtown Tulsa. The river's not too far away from us. We've had several tornadoes, unfortunately, recently, not too far away, from our immediate area, the Barnstall, Oklahoma tornado, which is an EF4, just unbelievable tornado, unfortunately. So long answer again, short answer is, no. A lot of those things are just that. They're just lore. They're myths that are passed along from maybe generation to generation. And but history will show us, if you go back and look at those records, especially if they're in the Memphis area, you'll find that there's been some pretty big storms in those areas that people think those bluffs are protecting you from.
Now, I know anecdotally, we also tend to get snow. Also tends to go north and south of us, and it's interesting. For some reason, northern Mississippi, I think, gets colder than West Tennessee. I suppose there's an urban island effect maybe to that. I don't know, but I think to a certain extent Memphis is in kind of an interesting meteorological place because of the river, and I don't know what else, but maybe it's the urban island effect more than anything else.
Well, I think a lot of that, especially when it comes to winter weather, a lot of that has to do to deal with latitude. The more north we are in latitude, the higher opportunity we're going to get, obviously, for colder weather that will be more persistent to move through, especially with these big, mid-latitude cyclones that bring in those big winter storm systems. So, Memphis and Tulsa are similar in terms of latitude, and we have, the same type of variety to where we think, oh, there's not a lot of winter weather that happens here. And compared to our neighbors to the north, obviously that's true. But just like Memphis, because of the way that the depth of the cold air sometimes will come in, a lot of times we'll have more freezing rain episodes that will cause issues. Or maybe we won't get a lot of snow initially with a storm system that maybe is projected to get, 4 or 5 or 6 inches. We end up getting maybe an inch or 2 inches. I mean, that's fairly common. But again, you go back and look at the history. It's just like case law. You go back and look at the case law, and you will find precedent that will show you that you're still going to have your opportunity. 2000, what was it? November 30th, 2007, here in Tulsa. I went to sleep with not a drop of snow, an inch of snow everywhere. I woke up 4 hours later. We had 10.5 inches of snow. 2011. Banner year for snow here in Tulsa, and then ice storms, 2007, 2008. So again, I think a lot of that is very specific to certain patterns that will take place. But the more north you go in latitude, the air is deeper when it starts to come in the colder air, and it all combines. But we just like Tulsa and Memphis, we have our fair share of winter weather issues, but for the most part, compared to our neighbors to the north, it's not that significant, but when it happens, it is, because nobody knows how to drive on it.
That's right. That's right. Now, you and I are about the same age, it sounds like. I think folks of our age have lived in the 1 foot in the analog age and 1 foot in the digital age.
Well, that's true.
And I think we have an interesting perspective on the transition. And I always try not to sound like that old guy who back in my day, but you must have seen a lot of technological change from both in terms of weather and in terms of broadcasting since you got into the game. How has it changed for you? What do you think are some of the good innovations, and what are the things that frankly you could do without?
Well, that's a loaded question, Counselor.
I'm a lawyer. We ask loaded questions.
That's true. That's true. Well, first of all, I mean, for example, just me trying to maneuver the digital domain. You'll see on the side of the screen it says Callie Crone. That's my daughter. I'm using her computer, and I couldn't figure out how to put Alan Crone on it. That'll tell you something right there, Alan. Yeah, it's been remarkable. It really has. From a weather standpoint, from a weather enterprise standpoint, for example, let's go back to like 1996, 1997, 1998. The data, a lot of the data that we would look at would still be coming in the weather office on these huge DieFax printer machines. And if you're familiar with like an Oki Data printer from years ago, these were huge printers similar to Oki Data printers. And these charts, you hear people talk about the weather charts, literally would be printing off these weather charts for different levels of the atmosphere. And when I would be walking into the weather office was upstairs, and I would be walking up those stairs. And if I didn't hear that printer going off, I knew it was going to be a bad day, because the printer jammed. And those weather charts are in there, and I'm not going to have that completed data set. Compared to now, to where anyone can get on the internet, and there's so much available weather data. I mean, almost, not completely all, but almost all of the computer model data that operational forecasters look at, you can look at the majority of that on the internet and do analysis. I mean, it's remarkable how that has changed. The radar technology has changed in the last 15 to 25 years. When I first started, it was just a bare bones NEXRAD, and now it's a dual polarization of the NEXRAD radar, which is totally crazy from where I started. And so it's very, very interesting. Satellite technology has improved dramatically. The observations in terms of how we get observations, a lot of the country now, local groups have started what are called mesonets, so that every certain area will have observations. Like we have a great mesonet here in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma mesonet. So within every county, there's at least one observation site that is every 5 minutes giving local observations, and that really helps operational forecasting. And I'm sure there's some as well in Tennessee and near Memphis and all across the country. They're trying to improve or increase some of those. So the weather enterprise continues to change, especially now with new computer technology. It takes a lot of computer technology and firepower to run these computer models. And because the computer technology is getting better and better, the models can run faster and faster. And so that just in and of itself is a big improvement. Augmented or artificial intelligence is something that we'll see how that will work out in the future. Obviously, all of us will, but that I think will have some impact eventually on the weather enterprise. And then on the broadcasting side, to answer your question, years ago, to be able to do a remote broadcast, you would have to have a microwave truck. So a point A to point B, a microwave unit, or maybe a live truck. And you would see a person carrying a camera with a big camcorder type unit. And maybe you would also uplink to a satellite and use the satellite. And now the same technology that we're using right now to talk with one another is being used on a daily basis all across the country with basically what are called bonded cell phone units. So this is just a very simple explanation on how this works, but it's like 5 or 6 cell phone bonded together that we're able to connect a camera in, and you can broadcast using cell phone towers back to the station. Station takes it and puts it back out. So it has changed the game in terms of being in certain areas to broadcast from. The bonded cell phone technology, it is remarkable.
What do you think the future is for local news? We've seen, I remember in 1999, I went to I think it was 99, I went to a ABA convention, and they gave us these little Palm Pilots, first generation Palm Pilot. And we were talking with, I was in a seminar about media law. And I came away convinced that within 5 years, the newspapers would own the internet because they had all the content and so forth. And, fast forward to today, there really are no newspapers. I guess my question is, as you said, I mean, I've got a weather app on my phone. What's the role you think for the future for the local weather broadcast within the local news? What do you see happening there?
Well, and I agree with you. Over the years, there's been a lot of debate. What is going to happen to media, to newspapers, to television, because the viewing or the listening or the diving in and using that content has been fragmented so much. I mean, Alan, just think of the number of streaming services that we now have compared to the one that we started with. Netflix, and now there's so many different streaming services. There's so many different cable outlets that you have to choose from. And so the competition for the viewer or the reader or the listener is extreme. And there's so many different choices. So the way that I personally kind of think about this is that there will always be a need for reliable, trustworthy, local information. Now, that may not be the same thing on a national basis, and we can talk a little bit about that if you want to, the role of the cable networks and how I think they have really not done a good service in terms of what they have done over the last 15 to 20 years. It's changed so much. But from a local television or a local news outlet standpoint, I think that there's always going to be a need for local information, especially somewhat, hyper local. People in Memphis want to turn on the television. They want to get the newspaper. They want to pull up their phone. They want to know what's happening in the city council. They want to know what's happening in their community around them. And that is the role and basically that's the role of journalism, is to be able, it's a noble cause, to give that information out so people are informed, they can make decisions. So I see still, even though the fragmentation of the business is obviously continuing to happen, and newspapers are falling by the side. Even some television news organizations are changing quite a bit over the last couple of years with cutbacks. But I see it still as a noble cause to give information to the public, and I also see it more as a utility. When you turn on the water at home and flip that light switch, you expect the electricity to be there. You expect the water to be there. So I think when people do want that information, when they're going to it, they have to be able to get it, because if they don't, then they will move on and they'll go on to different services.
What would you say, having said all of that, what would you say to little 10-year-old Alan Crone, either in Memphis or in Oklahoma, McAllen, Oklahoma, who is having the same thoughts you are having, looking outside, loves the weather, loves broadcast? What would you say to that person that he or she should do next, like based on everything you just said?
Well, I think I kind of went about it the long, hard road. There might be a better way to actually do that. But in all honesty, what I would say is to try to educate yourself in as many things as possible. And we do talk to a lot of kids about weather, about careers in broadcasting. And I always tell them that every single thing that you have the opportunity to study will help you in broadcasting. It will help you in operational forecasting. Every single thing. Obviously, in terms of weather, it's the scientific principles, the processes of the physics involved with the weather, the operational standpoint, just the nuts and bolts of how patterns work, El Nino and La Nina, and cold fronts and warm fronts. I mean, you study all that and you learn all that. But the other things that you learn at school, how to interact with people, how to complete projects. You might not think that, social studies or history or math or whatever you're doing as a young child or a young person is going to help you in the future, but it will. Every little thing that you can do. The arts, I'm a huge fan of the arts. I encourage kids and adults to be involved in the arts. I think that music, languages, everything that you can do can help you improve, can help you to achieve that goal. And it's not just the nuts and bolts, especially from a broadcasting standpoint or from a forecasting standpoint, but Alan, it's an interpersonal standpoint. It's how do you get along with people that you work with? What's that interaction, going to be like? You have folks on your team there that I know that you work very hard and diligently to have everybody on the same page, to have everybody working in the same manner, but also to have a good time and to understand what people are going through and how to help them, help one another. So there's a lot involved in it other than just, hey, study hard, get good grades, go to school and see what happens.
I agree with you, because I think the technology and all of that will take care of itself. But if you've got a firm foundation in what you want to do intellectually and attitude, there's a better way to say that. I think that leads you along. One decision that leads to the next decision, next opportunity, et cetera. And you're a good example of someone who, 15 and a half years old, you probably not in your wildest dreams would you have said, oh, someday I'm going to be essentially a weatherman in my hometown.
No, not at all. I don't want to say I just kind of fell into it. I think the weather found me and I found the weather. I have a very strong faith and I believe that things happen for a reason. And so for whatever reason, I am in this position at this particular point. I've been here for, a long time. I'll do it until the door closes, and that means I need to move someplace else or do something else, but that's the way that I kind of see things.
Well, fortunately for you, you're a good looking guy. I have a face for radio. I've done a lot of radio. I just always tell people it's an old cliche, but if you love to do something, do it. Eventually, if you're good enough at it, somebody will pay you to do it.
That's absolutely true. And also, I feel that practice and repetition and time, you see these folks, that are professional athletes or professional singers, professional musicians. You see them do their performance, but you don't see them practicing. And you don't see them failing over and over and over. You do see me failing. Everybody knows when I fail. You got to do that repetition, that practice. Malcolm Gladwell in his book, he borrowed that phrase from that, I believe it was the Swedish psychologist that said, you got to do something for 10,000 hours until you start to even have a chance to be good at it. So sometimes young people don't want to hear that. But you got to put in a lot of time. And even when you get to that level, those 10,000 or those years, you've been practicing law for many, many, many years. And I've been doing weather for several years, many, many years as well. And there's still times when I will look at the radar, I'll look at the pattern and go, what in the world is going on here? Weather is a very humbling business, and it will set you straight very quick.
Yeah, I bet. And yeah, I've always said, the weather person has a very public job, and when you're right, you're right. When you're wrong, and like you say, nobody remembers when they got their car under the carport in time because you told them it was going to rain. But they remember when they planned a golf outing and you said it was going to be sunny and they got rained on.
That is true.
I just watched the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode with the weatherman. Have you seen? Are you a Curb fan at all?
I have seen one or two of those. I haven't seen that episode, but I will put it on the list and I will absolutely check that out.
You need to look to watch that, because I won't spoil it for you, but the weatherman he comes out on top eventually.
Well, that's a shock.
Yeah. Well, Alan, I really have enjoyed talking with you. As I said, it's a pleasure to formally meet you, at least electronically like this. And if you're ever in Memphis, I will be extremely insulted if you don't reach out and say howdy and let me get you some barbecue and an adult beverage if you indulge, and we'll trade some more stories.
I would absolutely love to do that, and I promise you, if I'm headed that way in Memphis, I will definitely stop in, and you and your family as well. If you're ever in the Tulsa area, I know you said you had lots of connections with your family at the University of Arkansas. So if you're ever back this way, you got to stop in. We'll give you the $5 tour and let you see what's happening here in Tulsa, because we got a good thing going on here in northeastern Oklahoma.
Well, I've seriously, I've heard Tulsa is a great town, and Memphis and University of Tulsa are in the same league.
That's true.
And so maybe we can figure out a way to make that work. What's Tulsa from a culinary standpoint? What is Tulsa best known for?
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, Tulsa has got it going on here. We moved here in 2006, and it has been a steady increase from 2006 up to the present. I mean, it is absolutely remarkable. There's so many good local restaurants here, and food places, and just all kinds of different things that have really been developed nicely over the last couple of years, and it continues to thrive. And almost on, I wouldn't say a weekly basis, but every month and a half, there's something new that's coming to town. The downtown, I'm sure, as may have happened in the past at times in Memphis, where there's an area that needed some rejuvenation. I think the downtown Tulsa area kind of needed that from about 2006, 2008, and then it just exploded. I mean, it is absolutely remarkable, the change that has taken place. And so, again, long answer, there's some really nice places, that you need to check out if you're headed to Tulsa.
All right, I'll do it. All right, my friend. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure for everybody who watched this. I thank you so much if you enjoyed it. This is the only time I'm going to say this. Give Alan Crone 5 stars. He deserves 5 stars. Give him 5 stars. And Alan is going to go and predict the weather in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm going to go get a little justice. Thank you all very much for watching.